Welcome back to Let's Talk Baseball. I am your host, Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend Jacob Payne, and we are starting our power rankings of each team. We are going through power rankings 30 through 1, basically saying, who's hot, who's not heading into the season. We will later be going, as we go through, we will be ranking it through divisions, and eventually we will get into our award picks, which is going to be fun. I'm excited for that because I have a very controversial pick, and I'm ready to get into it. But yeah, how are you doing, Jacob?
Doing well, doing well. Been keeping up with the World Baseball Classic so far. Seeing Australia pull off that insane upset against Korea. That was awesome to watch. But doing well. I'm excited to get started with our power rankings here. I think I think it's going to be interesting because I think we will have some differing views on where some of these teams land. But in a general sense, I think we have a good idea of who's in the upper echelon, who's in the top of the top, and then kind of who plays around that middle of the pack. But yeah, I'm very excited to get started with this.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. So our 30th ranked team. I know me and Jacob have talked about this. I don't think a lot of debate has to go into it. And sorry, but if any Ace fans out there watching this, but it's got to be the Oakland Athletics. I mean, they've been a laughing stock of a franchise. They need to move to Vegas. Like if I give them one piece of advice, move to Vegas. No matter no matter how much it costs, you need to do that because it will uproot the fan base. It's what they need to do. It's just point blank what they need to do. In this offseason, they have added Drew Ruzinski, Tyler Wade, Jesus Aguilar, Jace Peterson, Daryl Horniz, a 16th ranked prospect from the Orioles, Manny Pena, Aledmus Diaz, Kyle Muller, uh, Shintaro Fujinami, Trevor May, and a couple of prospects from that big trade with the Brewers and the Braves, including Esteury Ruiz. But they lost. They also lost a bit of guys, Jacob. They lost Chad Pinder. They lost Joe Payamps, a rookie who looked great. They lost Cole Irvin, who was my prediction to be their team MVP because he is an underrated stud. They also lost their superstar catcher Sean Murphy, who is one of the top catchers in the game, top five in my opinion. And they lost AJ Puck in that trade to the Marlins. They received JD Bleday for that, a hard throwing lefty who at his prime was looking like one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. So obviously, I mean, you can't say too much about how optimistic you are about this team because there's not a lot of optimism to be had. But what do you think about this team going from this 2022 season into the 23?
Yeah, obviously when you look at the Oakland Athletics, at least as of late, they've been quite the laughing stock, as you said. Obviously, storied franchise. I love watching Moneyball whenever it comes on. Um, but there's a clear direction that they're heading, and it's not up. It's down. But I think there's a good reason for that. Obviously, I know we've talked about this before, but the franchise wants to move to Vegas, or at least wants to move out of Oakland because Oakland will not give them a new facility. Um, and so I think the big thing is, can we as a franchise, as the Athletics franchise, can we make this happen? And you know, right now I think they're in this place where they don't want they don't want to do well because they want to force um MLB's hand, and they want to force Oakland's hand and letting them move to Las Vegas, or again anywhere else for that matter. Um and so, we've seen rosters of this athletics team that really start to make waves. Um and they miss out on playoffs a couple of times, but just barely, and then they nuke their entire roster. Then they fire sale quite literally everybody of value, um and trade them in for prospects and money, which, like I said, is neither here nor there. I want to see a franchise finally start to make a push at making these playoff runs. Um, but like I said, I think they're in a place where it's almost like a pissing contest between the Athletics and MLB for allowing them to move, which I truly hope the Athletics move to Vegas. I think in every aspect, their franchise moving to Vegas will be absolutely incredible. Vegas doesn't have a baseball team. Vegas could get a baseball team. They could have a franchise like the Athletics, who, like we've talked about before, is a very storied franchise. Um, and it's Vegas, man. I mean, Vegas is just booming these days. Um, you have the Vegas Raiders, you have the Golden Knights, you have this hub of just this pool of wealth that if you slap a baseball stadium at the end of the strip, which was their original proposal, would be so incredible. Can you imagine? You know, you don't have to worry about parking, right? You park at one of the hotels, you walk around, maybe eat a little bit on the strip, then walk down to the end of the strip to the baseball stadium. Um, towards the end of the day, 7 o'clock game, you watch a baseball game, walk back to the hotel, and you're golden. Like that sounds like heaven, man. For me personally, that sounds great. That sounds like a wonderful day. So that just it's the right move, and so that's where I think the Athletics are going. But in their current state, where they are in Oakland, barely selling any tickets, with their facilities, not up to par as they want them to. They're the easy 30 place team. And I think that's almost why you can argue why the Nationals are more of a 30 place team, because the Athletics are trying to be that bad, whereas the Nationals are not trying to be that bad. Um, but n- these additions, they're not additions to make the team better per se. They're additions to see who can we flip for better value at the trade deadline. Realistically, that's just what's going on here. We're probably not going to see this team make any sort of big jump in terms of genuine quality until things change. For the franchise, whether that be Oakland finally giving up and giving them a new stadium and renewing their lease and finally saying, let's commit to this baseball team, or them moving somewhere else, most likely that being Vegas. We'll see.
Yeah, that's gonna be a storyline. There've been a lot of news lately revolving around that, saying that it might happen, but you never know. Marty Moreno said he might sell the team, and then look at them now. Uh, but looking at this lineup, I mean, I feel like it's definitely has improved since last season, and I feel like kind of like I said last video, a lot of themes. One of the big themes of this offseason was bringing in these vets for prospects, like you've been saying. But this is veterans is something that this team lacked a lot of this year, because they just brought up these guys from these AAA, AA teams, and these are veteran guys. I mean, Jesus Aguilar at his prime was one of the best first basemen in the game. They brought in Aledmus Diaz, Chase Peterson, some guys who can show these kids around and show the ropes and be like, hey, I know you're not gonna win for a long time. But when you do get there, you want to be ready. You don't want to just be thrown into it. Let's help you get there. And I like what they're doing there. I mean, JJ Bleday, I thought that was a really interesting move for them. I think he's a really cool prospect to watch out for them. They have Shea Langeliers, who he's going to be getting his first full season as their main catcher. So I'm excited to see how he pulls that off. And another prospect, Ken Waldachuk, came over in that trade with the Yankees. One of the best pitching prospects in the game. Is looking like to get a full shot at that rotation. And if he has an under 5 ERA, he might be the best pitcher there. It's like to say, but they do got some guys there. Paul Blackburn, just an all-star last year, kind of fell off in the second half, but he showed a lot of promise. James Caprillion, that guy I've always loved to watch. I've always thought he's a really underrated guy. As I mentioned before, Shintaro Fujinami and Drew Rucinski. It's just it's just what can you say, man? And just this team, there's not a lot of things to go right for this team. I think, like you said, if they have any glimmer of hope with these guys, you need to sell them for prospects. I think that's what they're gonna do. Obviously, a lot of these guys are 2-year deals, especially Jace Peterson and Ledmus Diaz, who I think they might let them show the kids some ropes. Seth Brown, however, I really like that guy. I think he's gonna be their all-star this year. Maybe he gets shipped off. I think that would bring in the most prospects if we're being realistic. But yeah, I mean, you look at the roster up and down, and you're not gonna get too excited about it as an A's fan, as a baseball fan. Just you got to do what you got to do. I'm sorry, my dog is getting up right there. But you got to do what you got to do in baseball, whether that means move to Vegas, like you said, or just be better as a franchise. But the over under, they have it at, let's see, they have the over under for them at 60 games and a half, and they won 60 games total last year. I feel like I have to take the under just because of where they are and who they are as a franchise, and that I know they're not gonna get better until they move to Vegas. But that's where I'm at. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an easy underpick here. With the Athletics, where, like you said, we're just simply not going to be seeing a lot of improvement over the next couple of years, this year included. So, it's the reasonable it's the reasonable estimate. If they end up overshooting this and play anywhere near 500 ball, that's great. You know, the AL West could always use another contender. You know, with the Astros, Mariners, Rangers, possibly Angels this season. But realistically, they're gonna get decimated by most of these teams. It's just the that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Although there will be a slight advantage for the Athletics in that they will be playing the AL West teams a little bit less this year, and just playing everybody else in general. They won't have to get beat up by their bigger brothers um, this season as much. But that being said, I don't really see them having a good chance against playing most of these teams in general. Um, so yeah, I think it's a very easy under pick. Um, I would genuinely be surprised if they won more than 65 games.
I agree, but yeah, that is something that we're definitely gonna have to take into consideration that the balanced schedule. They are playing 5 games less against each of their division teams, and last year that could be the deal breaker or game changer for them, for a lot of teams, for a lot of players. Pablo Lopez, who was traded to the Twins, in 2 or 3 starts against the Mets, he gave up 8 runs. That brought his ERA up by about, I don't know, from like a 280 to a 340. So just that alone is going to help him. Obviously, we're gonna see a huge jump from him. A lot of guys, and I got on a team I think is gonna make not a big jump, but from a little small jump with this schedule change, especially with the way the NL East has been looking this offseason, is the Washington Nationals coming in at 29. If you have a debate, I would like to hear it, but I definitely think there are better teams in the MLB right now than the Washington Nationals. They added a couple guys. They added Trevor Williams to bolster that starting rotation. A couple minor leaguer guys, Michael Chavis, Chad Kuhl, Stone Garrett. Their main star, quote unquote, pieces of the offseason. They brought in Jeter Downs, who was a part of that Mookie Betts trade. They got him off the Red Sox. I would like to see what he can do there. Heimer Candelario, who used to be a stud for the Tigers, never really figured that out after. And Dominic Smith, who was looking like one of the best prospects in the game as well, and never figured it out with New York. So he came over to Washington, where he's definitely gonna get a full playing spot. So let's see how he does. They lost a lot of guys though. They lost Nelson Cruz, now in San Diego, Luke Voigt, and a couple of minor leaguer guys. But yeah, where do you see this team? Because I just feel like in the NL East, they're not gonna make any jumps, especially with the Marlins, who out of nowhere have made moves. But I can never say never, but they're the 29th ranked team, according to me at least.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think the Nationals are right there, right in front of the Athletics in power rankings, and with good reason. won the, what was it, 2019 World Series? And then nothing, catastrophic failure. Um, and they traded away all their pieces between the 2019 World Series run and now. I mean, we've seen the likes of Max Scherzer, Trey Turner. Um, they ended up getting rid of Bryce Harper, uh, Juan Soto. Like you can name just about anybody on that World Series win team, and they are very likely not no longer on the team. Um, and it's some tough losses. I mean, even looking at it now, losing Luke Voit, losing Nelson Cruz. And Nelson Cruz, he's an older guy, but he's one of those veterans that like you need on a team of youngsters to bring them up, to give them some sort of backbone, um, to rely on. And you're losing some of those key pieces. Some interesting additions. Jeter Downs, like you said, I'd like to see what he's capable of. Obviously, he was in that Mookie Betts trade, so he's got some sort of value that the Red Sox saw in him, but clearly hasn't made any sort of impact up to this point. So we'll see what he can do there. Chad Kuhl, I thought was an interesting addition. Um, so we'll see with the Nationals, but like you said, I think they're very easily the 29th team in terms of quality of roster. I mean, just looking at the books, they don't have any flashy guys anymore. They just don't. That's what's going on here with the Nationals. And unfortunately, we really haven't seen any sort of rebuild potential with them. Um, very very few guys have been able to go to the Nationals within the last few years and either A, make a good case for staying on the Nationals and having a team built around them, or B, being able to be flipped for some good prospects or good cash. Um, and plus, like we've touched on before, they are in a brutal district or division with the I mean, you have the Braves, the Mets, the Phillies, the Marlins. Like we talked about the Marlins, can they be competitive in a division where it has the Phillies, Mets, and Braves? Right now, I don't think it's realistic. So to ask if the Nationals can be competitive in the next few years, I think that's even further from being realistic. At least the Marlins have some good pieces. You could look to the likes of Alcantara and Chisholm, who will likely be leading the team for quite a while. Nationals, C.J. Abrams, maybe. Is there a guy that they can look to be like that guy? Um, but I don't know. Like we've seen some potential out of him, but I don't know if he's that superstar that you're looking for that you had in a Juan Soto, a Trey Turner, a Bryce Harper that you just kind of let go of. And so it's tough to see a good side of the Nationals. Over the past few years, looking into this season, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel for them. I don't see anything where you could say, you know what, at least they got this. It's a tough roster. It's a tough look, but you know who knows? Maybe they could surprise us. It's baseball, and baseball can be a cruel mistress sometimes, and so some unexpected teams. Like I'll be honest, I think the year there.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Got that figured out a little bit. That was on my end. That's my bad. Jacob, continue with what you were going on with.
Yeah, I mean I was wrapping up, but I was just saying I think the Nationals team at the time that they did win the World Series, I think they definitely overshot for the roster that they had. But that being said, you know, if you're hot and you hit stride right when the time is right, that's all that matters, right? If you get wins in October, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter if you've got a an 82 an 81 record and barely make playoffs. If you get the wins, it's your World Series, right? There's no in my opinion, there's no fluke winner for World Series regardless, you know who wins and who doesn't. If you're the better team in October, that's what matters. So is there a possibility of this Nationals team overachieving, and playing well? Uh, yeah, sure. I guess there's an off chance, but I would say the most likely scenario is they're at the bottom of the barrel, like they have been the past few seasons, and probably finishing second to last um, in terms of seasonal record to the Athletics.
100% agree. I mean, like we said, for a lot of these teams, it's not going to be like this is a lineup we can look at and be like, "Oh, we're excited about," or a rotation. Or there's not going to be a lot of that here. There's going to be a lot of us saying, especially me saying, "Let's see where you are in a couple years," because the Nationals could have an outfield that could possibly run the show when they're all said and done. When they all come up, those prospects, C.J. Abrams, like we said, he's kind of looking to be their guy along with Joey Meneses. Let's see if C.J. Abrams can put it up. I know he had some struggles there, but let's see if he can put that up with a new balance schedule. Maybe seeing some pictures from the minors that he had already seen coming up, maybe could help him a little bit there. But like you said, they don't have anyone to kind of fall back as the leader of this team. I mean, if you're looking at one guy in specific, you got Steven Strasburg, but who knows with his health? I mean, right now his chances on Fangraphs at being a starting pitcher, a healthy starting pitcher throughout the rotation of the season is 8%. If you told me Steven Strasburg was not going to be their ace in 3 years in 2019, I would have laughed at you because there's just no way that would have happened because of how well he was doing. And now he's the third year down of his big contract that they gave him. He's making money, but he wants to play baseball. The Nats want him back. It's hoping that he can come back and give them maybe some light if there is any existing at the end of the tunnel, like you said. But it's gonna be a couple years that we see this Nationals team compete. Their over under was at 61 and a half games. One exact game above the Nationals, which I feel like is fair to put them at. Um, I'm gonna go with an optimistic over. I think I can see this team winning 65 games. That is more. That is over. Whether in terms of we're being 20 games over, 5 games over, I think there is room. I think they did improve. I think there's room for them to grow, especially with a lot of these prospects getting some full seasons. Let's see what they do. I'm not saying they're gonna go out and be third place, second place. Let's get that wild card, but um, I think we're gonna see some slight improvement from this Washington Nationals team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite direction, and I'm gonna say the under, and here's why. I think their pitching depth is very shallow. I don't think they have enough pitching possibilities, at least as of this point, to confidently say, hey, you know, if Josiah Gray goes out there and gets injured, um, we have somebody to fill the spot and can at least hold us off until he gets healthier. Um, I don't think they have the pitching depth to go through an entire season, and really come close to making a case for this team, to even play near 500 ball, realistically. So I'm gonna go with the under. I like to hope that they're not gonna be too far under. I hope they get about 60 wins, maybe 59. And hopefully by the end of this season, we can see some promise from those rookies, from those kids that we are going to look to and say, if the Nationals have a chance in the next few years, it's going to be led by those guys. It's going to be led by Josiah Gray. It's going to be led by C.J. Abrams. Um, we need to see some promise from these kids, and we need to see full healthy seasons. That's really what it's going to come down to, I think, for the Nationals. If they want to play anywhere near 500 ball and anywhere near getting that over, they're gonna need to be extraordinarily healthy, or just have some outstanding rookie seasons on some of these kids that they're going to be calling up during this season. So we'll see, but I'm gonna have to take the under.
Yeah, I mean, I was very hard for me to take the over, but I don't know. I'm an optimistic guy. Hopefully they don't disappoint me, make me look like a dummy. Also, there's my other dog, coming in and saying that she wants to leave the room. But these next four teams that we will be mentioning, I think we can both agree on that these land in this 28 through 26 spot, 25 spot. However, I don't know where exactly they line up. And I think those four teams that we can both agree are at least in this range are the Reds, Royals, Tigers, and Rockies. I hope we agree with that. But for the 28th ranked team, I personally, if I had it off the top of my head, choose who's the worst out of this four, I gotta go Cincinnati Reds here. And just because I'm thinking that head nod as a he agree, this is good. But yeah, they've just not done a lot. Kind of the same storyline as the Athletics. They were looking like they had a shot to compete in 2021. Maybe a couple of moves here and there, and they can be like, okay, let's go into 2022. We have a shot in a not really competitive division where you can come out and actually try to compete. But no, they fire they put a fire sale on and sold everybody, and they did some more selling this year. They not that much, but they lost a bit of guys over this offseason. They lost Kyle Farmer, former Dodger guy. They lost Mike Moustakas, former really great guy. They lost Donovan Solano, and they lost Aquino. He is a guy who was called the Punisher at one point, hitting 40 home runs in 2019. They brought in Kevin Newman, Luke Maile, Kurt Casale, Austin Romine, Will Myers, Luke Weaver, and Chad Pinder. And you notice three of the guys I mentioned out of their seven guys they brought in are catchers, and that's because Tyler Stevenson, who's one of the best guys on this team, one of the best catchers in base, he's gonna be one of the best catchers in baseball. But he was injured throughout the team's entire season, and that ruined his All-Star bid too, and that kind of sucked. So they are gonna have him try to get some DH, maybe some first base slots, so that way he can stay healthy. He can be the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, what do you think and see from the Reds here?
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I do think they are in the 28 spot. The Reds are an interesting case because up to this point, we've been talking about teams who are in pretty tough divisions, right? We talked about the Nationals who are in the NL East and the Athletics who are in the AL West. Um, Now we're getting to a team that is at the bottom of the barrel, and they're at the bottom of the barrel in a not so competitive division. Granted, you do have the Brewers and the Cardinals at the top of their division, which for how things are looking, the Cardinals I would argue are as strong or if not stronger than they were last year, and the Brewers are still in this kind of middle ground where are they competing? Are they not competing? Where are we at with them? Cubs, another meh, well, did they make some good additions? Yeah. Are they competitive yet? Hard to say. Hard to say. And then the Pirates, another team, young team, hasn't been competitive up to this point, but are trying to make a case for being competitive in the next few years. Um, so the Cincinnati Reds, they don't have a lot of competition in terms of, could they take the Central Division? A few years ago, I would have said yes. As of right now, in the state of their team, absolutely not. Realistically, they don't have the pull from that some of these other rosters do. I think they've made some interesting additions, and Kurt Casale, Will Myers, Chad Pinder, some interesting additions, but some tough losses. Like you said, they lost Mike Moustakas, who didn't necessarily put up the numbers that they wanted him to with the Reds, but a great athlete. Kyle Farmer, I thought we would have seen more from him. Um, I think there was still a lot of potential there for him to break out as a player, but I guess the Reds didn't really want to bank on that. Right now for the Reds, I just don't see them making any sort of waves. I think they're gonna ride around the line where they did last year, where it's, hey, We know we're bad, but we're looking ahead. Um, you have the Reds who, they're going to be trying to figure out how we can make moves in the future, right? How can we build up this team for the better? And like you said, one of the big things last year was the fact that their star catcher wasn't healthy. And how do we fix that? We add 3 catchers. Um, which is great. That's wonderful, and that is exactly what they should be doing. Um, in order to fill those holes, but it's not just the catcher spot, right? They need depth all throughout their roster, and right now I'm not seeing it. Um, I could say the same thing with the Reds that I did with the Nationals, in that I don't think the starting pitching depth is there um to make a case at a good season. But like we've said before, we could be surprised. But as of right now, I have the Reds at the strong 28 spot.
Yeah, there is not a lot of depth to go around here. Feel like if one guy gets injured, if you're looking at a Joey Votto again, or even a Jonathan India, you have pretty much nothing to fall back on, which is kind of one of the struggles of being one of the worst teams in baseball. And yes, granted, they got some guys, Nick Lodolo, pitching prospect, who obviously got some time at the scene last year. Hunter Green, another great guy, looks like he's gonna be one of the next great pitchers. But other than that, their farm system compared to the Nationals um isn't it's not that great. I mean, you got guy Spencer Steer. He's gonna be getting a first full year. Let's see what he can bring out. They got Ellie De La Cruz, who is rumored to have a call up this year. One of their top prospects, and not their top prospect. I'm not 100% sure, but he looks like a stud. And if he could come up and make some moves, and maybe you do make that move of Tyler Stevenson to first base, you would be looking at a infield of Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz, Jonathan India, and Tyler Stevenson, which would be absolutely nasty. But like we said, they're the 28th ranked team. There's not a lot of optimism, and I'm gonna say that a lot for these teams. This is not a lot of hope to be shared. If I had one goal in mind for this Reds team, keep Stevenson and Votto healthy, and let's see what they do. Votto, a guy who might retire after the season, if he puts up any good numbers, I would not be surprised. Even though he is close to their heart and their home in Cincinnati, I would not be surprised if he is shipped off to a team where they can get some prospects, because that is something that they lack a lot of, and that is something that we might be seeing a lot of these lesser teams, or even this lesser central teams, do, where they know they're not going to be where they know they're not going to be competing now, but each and every team in the central is going to be building up to make a run in the future. And if these teams can be like toe to toe with them with moves and keep building up their prospect systems, we will see where they are in a couple years. I don't think like the Nationals, like I said, let's see where they are in a couple years, because I don't think, like we said, they don't have that farm system, that flashy farm system, to build around and dream upon. But like we say, baseball is baseball. Maybe we can get some good seasons out of Will Myers, former big guy for the Padres. But we'll have to go wait and see. Their over under is at 65.5 games, and I want to get your take on this first.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go the same thing. I know I'm a broken record here, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the under. I think right now the state of baseball, the good teams are getting better, the bad teams are getting worse. Um, and so if I had to guess, I simply don't think the Reds have the depth in order to make a case at winning more than 65 games. You could look at the starting pitching. You could look at the bullpen. You can look at their infield right now. It's a little spotty. Um, I don't think if they were to go through a couple of injuries that they would be able to recover um, the pieces that they do. Obviously, they have pieces like Hunter Green and Jonathan India who are going to very likely play very well. Um, but it might be another kind of Sandy Alcantara, diamond in the rough type situation where we have with Hunter Green, if he really starts to hit stride, what is it worth if he's the only thing working well in the team? So I'm gonna have to go with the under, but I really hope that I get surprised and the Reds play well.
I am gonna have to agree with you there. I'm gonna take this under. Not a lot you can look forward to with this team. There's not a lot of guys who are gonna sell the most tickets, guys who are gonna put on a show, guys who are gonna hit 3 home runs a game, guys who are gonna get 9 shutout innings. It's just not gonna happen. And like that depth is gonna be tested for a lot of guys, especially with this balanced schedule. Yes, you are facing less. You are facing more worse teams, but you're also facing a lot more better teams than you usually would be. I agree with you. Hopefully, we see some good things. Maybe we see these prospects come up, and so show some light for the future to come. Thank you for joining us on this Monday's episode of Let's Talk Baseball. We will have another episode coming out this Friday. We will definitely get into the Royals, Tigers, and Rockies, and we'll see where we would continue on with our rankings from that. Thank you for joining us for our first power rankings. I'm Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend Jacob Payne. So sorry for the technical difficulties, and we will see you next time.